Hit record. So everyone knows we're recording now. And could somebody, just as a double check, Spanish Amanda, can you double check and make sure live transcript is working for you as well? You'll be my second tester.
Sure thing. Yep, it appears to be working on mine.
Are you able to drag it around wherever you want?
Yes, I can do that.
Okay, fantastic. All right, well, I'm Holly with Bedhead and need to get back to my regular duties. So I'm gonna let Al take it from here. I'm sorry, I have to miss your talk, Jeremy.
Well, it's being recorded, so you can watch it later.
Yeah, I'll be editing the transcript, so I will miss 0 of it.
Great.
I'll be editing the transcript later for upload to our YouTube. So I'll get a deep dive later. Glad to have you here. Welcome to all the new folks. Please feel free to reach out, and Al's going to launch an carousel deck in just a few minutes that shares a bunch of information about STLX, so you know where to find us. And I think that's it. Are we good, Al?
Yep.
All right. Well, I'm going to hand things over to my partner in crime. My mouth won't work today. I'm just getting out of here. Have a great time, you guys.
Okay.
Thanks, Holly.
Bye.
All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the St. Louis User Experience Group Meetup. I'm just going to go over a few intro things and then we will get started shortly. Okay. So first thing, feel free to introduce yourself in the chat. One of our big goals this year is to build community. We know it's difficult to meet new people and to network with all of COVID going on, this pandemic and everything, but we really want to encourage you guys to get to know your fellow UX community. And our community is not just, designers and researchers, but developers, POs, that sort of thing as well. So we have a handy dandy way to do that. Introduce yourself in the chat, your name, your pronouns if you wish, location, career focus, and if you're really feeling dandy, go ahead and put your LinkedIn list in there. And then we have some hashtags as well. So lots of times we'll have recruiters that will show up to our events. So if you are looking or you are hiring, please put that as well. Or if you are looking to mentor or be mentored, we love spreading mentorship. So please share who you are and say hello in the chat. We do have live transcription now. So if you are one of those folks that needs that, we have it. So go ahead and click the CC live transcription and you will be able to see a live transcription of Jeremy's talk today. And Holly usually does as well create a transcript after. So if you need that after, please feel free to reach out to us and let us know. Okay. Join our Slack channel. This is where, oh, hey, Mark, it's good to see you. Mark's my buddy. So,
Squirrel.
Yeah, that's me. So please join our Slack channel. This is where most of our things go down. If you want to know what's happening with STLX, how you can be a part, please definitely join our Slack channel. And you can also follow us on Meetup. We always post what we have coming up on Meetup. This is a daytime meetup, but we usually have afternoon/evening meetups as well. So we have a few things going on, so feel free to follow us there. And subscribe to our YouTube channel. This chat will be on the YouTube channel. Okay, so here's our team. We have social media manager, Danielle, our co-founder / past president, Martha. Then you already know Holly and I. And then we have new team members now. We're growing here at STLX. So our event coordinator is Kim Camp, and our membership coordinator is Elena Jones. Feel free to reach out to any of us. Okay, so our next event coming up is with Doug Collins, and it will be all about dark patterns for learning about, what they are, how to ID them, and how to design better by not using them. So if you're wondering about dark patterns, feel free to join us on May 27th from 6 to 7:30, and we'll have Doug Collins talking all about that. And he's not a local. I believe he's out in the Denver area. So, you know, one of the great things about the Schmindemic is that we can have folks that are not in the area. So definitely come out and hear about dark patterns. Okay. So design systems. Well, no, that's in the wrong place. And I edited these, so that should be better, but it's not. So let me introduce my buddy Jeremy here. So Jeremy's a UX designer who's passionate about creating frictionless experiences that are delight to people who love technology. He lives in St. Louis with his family and loves drawing, hiking, reading, and other activities far remote from glowing screens. And I have to say how excited I am to have Jeremy speak. I am actually on Jeremy's team at Worldwide, and so I've seen him go through the struggle of design systems multiple times over, because he's not done this once, but he's done this twice. And so I've been able to be in the background and seeing all the things that he's going through. And so when thinking about who can teach our crowd about design systems, Jeremy came top to mind. But Jeremy is normally not a speaker, so I had to kind of trick him into doing this. So I'm very excited to hear him speak, and I will go ahead and turn the ball over to him.
Well, thank you, Al. That is true. You did trick me. I was sort of reluctant to do this not because I'm nervous or scared to, but because I didn't really consider myself to be a design system expert. But I have gone from 0 design systems to now helped a whole lot with 2. So I probably have, hold on, I have to set my system preferences to share my screen. Okay, I will be right back. I have to quit Zoom to share my screen. I'll be back in 2 seconds.
Okay, I do want to remind everyone that after the talk, we're going to have a quick coffee chat. So if you have questions about design systems, if you're wondering how to implement them into your processes, if you're wondering follow-up questions, please definitely save those for the end, and we will discuss more about design systems then.
Okay. See, that didn't take long. Okay, can you guys see that?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, so like Al said, I work at Worldwide Technology. A few of the people from the team that I'm on are on this call. So hey guys, sorry you get to see the same thing you see at work all the time here. But either way, sorry. So today I'm going to talk about kind of the struggle from going from no design system to having one, and some of the things that I've learned in the process, and some of the pitfalls that we've had and some of the successes we've had from building a design system from scratch. So first of all, I assume most people know what a design system is, but I found this definition online and then I changed a few things. Then I had some other experts correct me on a couple of other things. But either way, this is kind of a accumulation of different opinions about what a design system is. And I really liked this definition. I'm not going to read it out loud because you guys can all see the screen, but it really defines kind of everything that should be in your design system. And the clear standards is a big part of that. So we'll get into that a little bit more. But again, like, who the heck am I? This is my first time being at the STLX crew. Like, I've never even dialed into a meeting before. So hosting it is a good way to kind of jump in. But I've worked at Worldwide Technology for 6 years. I have 22 years of graphic and fine art experience outside of that, freelance, corporate, kind of all over the place. So really diverse portfolio of different projects and types of projects I've worked on. And of course, I love organized files, as anyone who's worked with me can attest. So Worldwide, when I started at 2015, I was the second dedicated UX designer in the entire company. The first is on the call here, our boss, Teresa, who's great. She was on the team that I was hired on, and I was like, there's 2 of us for this huge company. And she's like, yes, great thing. I'm glad to have you. So, so having a huge company with a lot of different development teams and having only 2 designers, we kind of just went from team to team to team and just helped whoever we could. It was really kind of spread out and spread thin, and there was really no governance as far as like how our apps should look. There were brand standards in place from marketing, but they were not application focused. Each development team that we went to help with was in its own silo. They used whatever dev stack they were comfortable with. They designed however they wanted, and every app looked completely different from every other app. So it was just a mess. And again, the corporate website looked different from all of those apps as well. And the tools that we had back then were Adobe XD, Illustrator, Photoshop, Sketch, Zeppelin, and Plant. So again, just kind of all over the place. And this led to problems. We had trouble sharing files. We had trouble versioning. Handing things off to developers was a pain. If there was one file for like the homepage of the website, I would have to save it and then save it to a shared file. And then Teresa would have to download it and open it and start to do her work on it and then save it. So we couldn't work on the same thing at the same time. It was a lot of first world problems. So fast forward a few years, we had a vision from the stakeholders to combine the ATC content into the corporate website. So the ATC is the Advanced Technology Center. It's kind of like this really fancy place. It looks like, Tony Stark's tower from the Avengers. When you walk through, there's just lots of glowing lights and glass and cool technology. And there was a lot of content there that was built to be consumed by partners and customers from Worldwide Technology, but it was a separate app. So they were like, hey, let's combine that stuff into the actual corporate website. So everybody can just go to one place and then they can access their labs and the other cool stuff that they do for the ATC there. So we're like, we really need a design system. If we're going to start building things that are massive with lots of people going to it and contributing to it, we need some governance as far as how these things look and how they feel. And the time is more clear than ever that we need to actually implement a design system. So we created a little war room. Teresa snagged all of these screenshots. This is our designs for the corporate website on the left. And then each one of these vertical sheets of paper taped together are different apps. And we're just comparing and contrasting how different everything looked. And as a UX designer, this is very disappointing. You don't want all of these completely different experiences. So if someone comes in and they use one of the apps and then they go to the website, it looks and feels different. And it was just bad for business. So the scope of the project prompted management to hire some more designers. So we hired a few more people, and then we got put onto one team. So it was great. We had one design team finally with, I think it was 5 people. One of them was an intern, but then there was 5 full-time designers. And then we switched to Figma. We took all of our Sketch and XD files and we did our best to redesign them into Figma, and I will get into Figma later because Figma is great. And then we had the uphill battle of getting acceptance for a design system. I'll touch on this later too, but anybody that doesn't really understand the benefits of a design system, I'm talking management, they are usually hesitant to be like, well, let's invest all of this time and labor into something that I don't really understand. So to get acceptance for management and the development team as well is a big part of having a design system work. So we made Blue Steel. Blue Steel is the name of our design system. It is from Zoolander. If you haven't made that connection yet, we have all these kind of blue gradients, and David is the one that came up with it, and none of us liked it, but it stuck. So now we like it. It's kind of our baby now. And this is just some screenshots. I didn't want to go into like a ton of detail about the first design system because there was a lot of missteps and problems with it. But I wanted to show some components that we built and just kind of the process of what that looked like, including this kind of top right, this Excel spreadsheet of who does what component, and then the checklist we go through of like layer consistency, colors, accessibility, spacing, who uploads it to Zeppelin, stuff like that. So we had a really kind of organized system to build this thing as a team. And it was great. There were highs and lows with this whole process. Figma was a big part of what made building a design system possible. We took Sketch, XD, Zeppelin, and Plant and just basically deleted them off our computers. Sketch and XD are design apps. Zeppelin is a developer handoff tool, and then Plant is a versioning plugin that we used for Sketch. So all of those together kind of helped us do our jobs and to get those to the developers to build. But Figma did all of those, and it was great to just go from 4 apps just to 1. Again, we didn't really know what we're doing, but we asked for feedback. This image here is every one of these blue pins is a comment left by some experts that I consulted with. Those experts are from Application Services downtown, otherwise known as the Asynchrony crew. So I reached out for help, and they were awesome. Like on their time off, they came through and scanned through every one of these components and said, this all needs to change, and here's why. And it was great, learned a ton. In the dialogue about having a design system was eventually accepted by upper management. We had full support across the team. All the dev teams were on board. Management was on board. They understood like why we needed one. And from here, we kind of just started taking off. Along with the design system, the developers switched from a whole bunch of different code bases to just one. So using Vue, Tailwinds, lots of other stuff too, but switching from like some teams using Angular 2 and some teams not using it and some teams using Bootstrap, having that go to just a really consistent code base and all of them sharing and using and contributing to the same code base was huge. So last year in the middle of the pandemic, we're all working from home and we get this email talking about the brand refresh. And we're like, whoa, wait, what? So the brand was getting a little stale and we hired a company outside to refresh our brand. And they gave us a whole bunch of new guidelines, which was part scary, but mostly really exciting. So they showed us, hey, here's your new fonts, here's your new colors, here's your new imagery. We tweaked your logo a little bit. And we sat back and we're like, oh, this is awesome. And we have some questions, but mostly this is a good opportunity to build a completely new design system. So this is the origins of Blue Steel 2. So using the full power of Figma, which again, I'll get into kind of a second, I'm going to do a little demo of what Figma looks like and what our Blue Steel design system looks like. Using Figma and everything we learned from the first time, we created a whole new design system from scratch. All new buttons, colors, everything. It was awesome. And then again, the dev team that was working on the components from the first time started building the components that we are designing now. And the collaboration that Figma gives us made working from home actually possible. So this entire design system was created, each one of us working from our own homes, building together at the same time. And this is where we are now. So Blue Steel is mostly done. I don't want to say finished because I'll get into this a little bit later. It's never finished, but it's very, very far along. So what I'm showing here is the Figma interface. Those of you that have not used Figma, this is what it looks like. If you're a Sketch user or an XD user, you will be like, oh, this looks a whole lot like Sketch, which is true. But it does some other things that are awesome that Sketch doesn't do. Sketch is trying to catch up to it, but this is a little bit of what our design system looks like. So on the left here, each one of these is a page. Each one of these pages has a entire collection of components. So we set up these guidelines, which is part of the definition, having the clear standards of like what your design system does, what it is made up of, best practices, things like that. So as long as people follow these rules, then everybody will be on the same page. Work together on a visual language of like, here's what colors and gradients look like. We gave them names, we have their hex codes. These are translated into Tailwind. So anybody that is using the Tailwind dependency of your CSS, you will pull in the exact same hex codes that we are using in design here, which is great. The dev team just grabs it and uses it. Going through our fonts, we spell out exactly what the font is, family, the style, all the CSS that anybody needs. We spell out what our links look like, and focusing on spacing and keeping these things consistent. Obviously, this is a work in progress, which is set here. And And then a whole thing about animation, exactly what animation does, what it looks like, elevation, spacing, shadows. So these are all guidelines that go across the entire board. These are things that dictate exactly how our pieces are placed, what the designs look like. And these are what keep our apps and our website consistent. So these things are huge to get right and to make sure that they're accessible, that the contrast is good enough, that your fonts can be read by anybody. And this is really what defines everything in the design system. So we have our layers. Like I said, I love very organized files. They're layered alphabetically. So from here, you just kind of go in and you build out every one of these components. You name them, set them up, you show their focus state, their active state. You have tips on what they look like and how to use them. You have examples, how to do spacing. Basically, anybody can come in here and, having never used any of these pieces before, can grab them, read about them, and start building with them automatically. Before design systems, we would have one person would build an accordion on one team, one person would build an accordion on a different team that were slightly different, and it was twice the effort and none of the consistency. So this way, everybody's using the same exact piece. Whenever this component is placed in a design, this is the master version of that. And whenever a designer grabs it and uses it in their design, they're placing an instance of that. And what that means is we can come in here later and change this and hit publish, and it will push that change to every single placed version of this component throughout our entire company. That way, everybody always has the newest version of everything all the time. When I was mentioning the power of Figma, that's exactly what I was talking about. By using these components, we all have the newest version all the time, and nobody is ever using something that's out of date. So it just keeps that consistency perfect across the board. So I'll go through a couple more of these components we designed out. Let me hide these, that's a whole lot to look at. Design out app headers showing logged in, logged out. Background graphics that we got from the company. We rebuilt these in Figma from scratch. Banners, what our banners look like, how to click it, what mobile banners look like. Our buttons, what they look like with primary, with icon, without. Again, all the states, active state, focus state, disabled, secondary, positive, warning, and negative. So spelling out exactly when and how to use these buttons, what they look like, what drop downs look like. And then we have a test up here. So you can grab the button, and using Figma, you can change this to whatever. Place it in your design, and then you're like, you know what? I think this should be a warning. So you change it to warning, it goes to orange automatically. You can toggle the icon on or off. You can set the hover state from focus to disabled to back to base, and then change it to negative if you want. So placing one version of this component in your design, you automatically have all of these options, assuming the component is built properly, which ours are now. So instead of grabbing a new version of a button and dragging it in place and deleting your old one, you just go over here and you just click something new and it changes for you. So there's a lot of versatility and a lot of power built into these components. So calendar, cards. I'm not going to go through all these, but it is kind of cool just to see behind the scenes of like, here's what our cards look like. These are horizontal cards. Each one of these is showing the content type. Vertical cards, featured cards, so on and so forth. And then as the dev team is building these, they have questions for me. And they're like, what happens when you do this? What happens when this happens? What happens with this? How do pills behave? So using Figma, the developers come in here and they have access to all of this too. So we show them exactly how the pills behave. So when you click, it goes to this. If there's a +7, it goes to this. And we can show them exactly how everything works. Let me go to presentation mode here. So for accessibility, if you're tabbing through a card, we spell out tab 1 does this, tab 2, tab 3, and how to go through the entire card showing how fully accessible all of these components are and how someone using only a keyboard can still get to everything that's available in our cards and what that looks like. So the dev team has already built this based on this design here. And then showing the hover states. When you hover over the image, it does this. When you hover over the words, it does this. When you hover over the icons. So really just full explanation. There's no guesswork at all. And then whenever there is no image, showing the default states. Each one gets an article that coincides with the content type. That way the developers know, yes, I know what to do for a lab now. And really just keeping this super clean, super organized, answering any questions that the developers could have. And not only the developers, but any stakeholders, product owners, analysts that come in here and want to poke around, they have access to all of this too. So checkboxes, drop downs, again, just every one of these is something that we've put a ton of time and thought into, including our icons. These are all completely custom icons. Anybody can use these. We have a whole list of these that are developed out there in GitHub right now that you can go and snag it and plop it in your designs and develop it. And it matches this exactly. We have some WebSockets hooked up to this so that whenever we add new icons, it does a push to GitHub and it gets updated there automatically. Something the developers hooked up, which is awesome. Input fields, same thing. You can go in here and change it from any state that you want. You can toggle on helper text or icons, left icons, right icons, anything that you could possibly want for your design. All of those instances are built into here. So a ton of versatility with these components. And yeah, again, just tons of stuff. Pretty much any possible thing. We talked about toast earlier, right before the call. Here's what our toasts look like. Tooltips. So again, yeah, anything you need to build something, we have done here. And then, so how do you actually put these into a design? So here's a design of our homepage. This is taking all of those components and building them out. Okay, so Figma's syncing right now. Again, it's all web-based. So as one thing happens, it loads for everybody. So now it's fully up to date. I see Alan here. So we're kind of working together on this design. We'll usually throw together a Slack call and just chat and be like, hey, thinking about this block here, I think we should do all events. So let's go ahead and change this to speaker series, change this from news to a webinar. And then you can go in here and customize this to be anything you want. This to say this instead. And using the power of Figma, this is all auto laid out. So as you type, things behind it will grow and shrink. Figma's super versatile. If I go up here and I decide that I want a button, I'll type in button. It's like, here's your buttons. You just drag it in. Here is my sweet, I'm gonna say swell button. You place this anywhere you want. You're like, here's my button here. We're gonna change it to small. I'll show a toast here, so you can change the text of the toast. We'll swap these cards to be something else. And again, instead of having versioning and uploading files to a shared drive and exporting to plant, we're here working together as a team. And you can have 50 people in here. We do these things at work all the time. We'll do a swarm, we call it. And you'll see all these cursors going in and people are adjusting things and we're copying stuff over. And it's just a way to show a collab session. And it's amazing the stuff that you can get accomplished whenever you have a whole bunch of people all in one file and we're all working together to help somebody that's kind of struggling with something. And we've done this before where we had a product owner on the call and we shared our screen and she was like, this is amazing watching you guys work together and build this. She was blown away at just like the level of contribution that we have on collaboration, especially because we're all working from home. The kind of thing that we sort of could do in the office, but not really. There's also prototyping. I'm not going to get a ton into prototyping. It's really cool. You can string up stuff and do animations and bring your design to life with Figma. Again, this is not a Figma talk. It's a design system talk, but Figma is really great. And then inspect. So this is just like inspecting a browser. If a developer comes in here and they click on the toast, they can go in here and see what it's called. They can see the width, the content shadows, hex codes. You can even copy direct CSS straight from here. And if we're using auto layouts to build things, that converts to Flexbox. So it shows the Flexbox components, all the CSS you need to hear to like develop your components with Flexbox. It generates all of that CSS automatically, which is great. And if a developer's like, you know, I just want to see this one thing, they can hold down Command and it'll just show just this piece of text right here, or just this icon, or just this stripe, or the whole thing. So this is our developer handoff tool as well. So as we build these things, we give the permissions to the developers to come in here, and they can come in, grab components, build them out, and then again, like ask questions like I showed on the cards view. So that's a little bit about Figma. Brief view of kind of what our pieces look like, how our files are organized, and how we use it to collaborate. Love Figma. Our lives are changed because of Figma. So some takeaways, pitfalls to avoid. I had Al change the name of this to like, maybe you don't need a design system. If you're a designer and you're working on just one app, probably don't need a design system unless it's going to be a series of apps across a lot of different platforms, or it's going to be an app and a website. You're going to want to have one solid page of components that's filled with buttons and inputs and spacing and layout grids and the other things that are going to keep your app looking like a professional app, but you probably don't need a design system. If you're a company or you work at a company and you don't have a design system, you probably need one. It's really, really helped our team and our bosses and the stakeholders that are dialing into our meetings and our presentations to see like, oh, hey, look, this custom app on the other side of the company looks just like the corporate website. And that user experience is much more consistent now than it was 5 years ago. So they see the benefit of it now and they love it and everybody's on board. But it was a lot of work to get everybody on board because it's a lot of upfront work. Like you have to really dedicate a ton of time and effort, resources and developers to like get this thing built. And once it's built, it's never done. You're going to update things. You're going to have issues with components. The developers may say, hey, we can't really build that the way you designed it, so we need to change it. So when they develop it, you change your Figma file to match what they developed, or they tweak their development to match the Figma file as much as possible. But it's never done. You're always updating it. You're always adding new things to it. You're always fixing it. Another pitfall to avoid is to make sure that your components are accessible. If they aren't, you could face a lawsuit. It's definitely happened. It's happened here in St. Louis. People try to use your app and they can't for some reason, then you have a problem. So Al is pretty much our go-to person about accessibility. We have them check it and make sure that it's accessible and that the font is bold and whatever, anything that needs to be, that's their job. And it's awesome to have that resource just to double check everything to make sure it's there. And what made us successful? Again, management buy-in. If your management is not on board, if whoever you report to isn't sold on a design system, you're gonna have a really uphill battle to get it to work. Luckily, the management worldwide is awesome. They really trust their designers. They trust the teams. They say, hey, you're the usability experts. If you think you need this, then we trust you. And they did, and it's paid off. It's been really great to have that kind of leadership that really listens to you and trusts you to do your job. If you don't have that, then you're going to have a really hard time. Like I said, it's a really big upfront investment. So you're going to have to dedicate like maybe an entire year to build one, where you're maybe working on other things too, but it really is a ton of time to get this thing built and to have it organized and to have it work. You're going to need a good design team. If you work with designers that you don't have a ton of faith and trust in, or they're not that great, again, you're going to have an uphill battle. Luckily, our team is awesome. We really work well together. Awesome at collaboration and compromise. There's no dictator saying, nope, I insist it's this way. We talk about things and we kind of work it out, and we all work toward having a consistent button or accordion file, or whatever. So having a good design team is really important. And having a design with no developers is totally pointless. So you have to also have a good development team with great communication between the two. We constantly talk to the developers. Like, they are pinging us all the time on Slack and saying, hey, I have a question about the dropdown, or hey, what does the ellipsis do when you click on it? And so you're going to need somebody that talks to them and answers their questions, and someone to check up on, go into GitHub, check on their components, check the hover states, the ease in out, the transitions, the things that make a component feel really polished. You're going to need to always be following up with the developers, because they're probably great at development, but they might not be good at the visuals and the little micro interactions that make a component feel really polished. So you're going to always need to have that communication, and hopefully have a development team that you can hand things off to and say, they got it. These people are awesome. So having a great development team and a great design team, time to do it, and management buy-in, you're setting yourself up for success. And that's all I have. And we still have plenty of time for a Q&A. So.
Great. So I am going to open it up with a question from Amanda Andress. Hopefully I said that last name right. So great presentation, Jeremy. Thanks for this sharing. What's one thing you like about the two design systems you worked on, and what's one thing you don't like?
There's a whole lot about the first one that I don't like. I look at it now, and any designer that looks at a design that they did 2, 3, 4 years ago, you're just like, oh my gosh, why would I ever do that? Our old one had a lot of sharp corners and some colors that didn't quite mesh well with each other. The new one with the rebrand, we had a whole lot of back and forth with the firm that put the colors in place. They had some great color ideas, but some of them weren't accessible, and we didn't have like a success color. Like, they weren't thinking success. They were thinking, oh, these purples and violets and pinks look really cool together, which we love, but working with them and getting a color palette that we think is consistent with some of the branding that Worldwide has had in the past, I think is really exciting. So I love the visual direction of the new design system, and things I didn't like about the old one were just some of the cringy design things that were put together that I have learned from and am happy that we have fixed for the new one.
Another question, does your company have UX writers that created a voice? And accordingly, the changing tone by situation, do you have those defined in your design system?
Yeah, the voice is a thing that we are always thinking about. We don't have a UX writer. There is a technical writer that works in marketing that we will reach out to and ask him for, hey, can you rephrase this better? And then, send it back to us. But a lot of the things that we are putting together, we just decide on as a team. And we definitely get feedback from product owners, managers. They say, hey, like, this seems a little too stiff, or this seems way too friendly. Like, it's finding a good balance of like, yes, you've hit an empty state. What does that empty state say? Or you've hit a 404. How do we make them feel not super frustrated that they got a 404, add a little humor to it, but keep it professional. Worldwide's a very professional, Fortune 500 company that's been around for 20 years. We can't put in like some wacky verbiage that we could with like a little startup. So we have to keep in mind who our client base is and kind of some of the expectations that our managers have. But at the same time, keep it fun and keep it personal. So we're trying to add a little bit more of that personal element into it with the new 2.0, which is something that we're always thinking about and talking about as a team.
Great. Do you have any pro tips or resources that were the most helpful when you were building your design systems?
Yes. So like I said, I wouldn't consider myself a design system expert, but I did know some. So I reached out to them and they were super happy to give me feedback. It's usually kind of very flattering to be asked about these kinds of things. So if you are comfortable reaching out to somebody who is an expert or who has built several design systems, just ask. It's way better to ask somebody to look at your files than it is to just do a lot of reading on Medium and then saying like, okay, well, I read a lot, so now I'm an expert. I'm going to just do this. So asking somebody and having them go through your file and leave hundreds of comments is terrifying, but it's also really humbling and it's a good way to learn. But before that, we just did a lot of research, looked up Facebook's design system, looked up Salesforce, all the main ones, Material and Apple's, anything that's out there that people are proud of, you can find pretty much the entire design system out there if you do a little research. People are happy to publish them. They're like, hey, here's our design system. We think it's awesome. So here it is. You can go through it and check it out. So there's a lot of inspiration out there if you just do a little digging.
Great. What did the discovery/research phase look like for you, and how are you getting feedback and understanding that your components are really solving problems for your users? And I can talk a little bit about.
I was going to say,
Yeah.
I was like, Al, why don't you handle this one?
So I usually handle a lot of the research processes for our team. So our current design system, we are starting some iterative usability tests. Think quick, fast, in a hurry, 2 to 3 tasks per usability test with our standard users. And so we're taking components of the design system, and instead of testing the full thing, we're breaking it down by components and testing those out with people. And getting rapid feedback on that. Think instead of a 3-month-long usability study, think 1 to 2 weeks. So we're doing really rapid iterative usability tests to try to get feedback as quickly as possible. And we did find when we were building the design system that, sometimes we were at a standstill of should this component look like this or this? And so our usability studies are going to help with that, as well as helping us figure out what do the users actually understand and how can we improve it and make it better. So that's how currently what we're doing. We have a large usability study planned, but we have a lot of these small ones in between to just get the questions answered as quickly as possible.
Yeah, we're really excited about these like rapid fire testing. It's, hey, what do you think of this button? Like our old usability tests. So I'll go into a little bit about our research and discovery phases. Back in the real world, before 2020, we would, as a design team, go into the headquarters. So the big giant building on 270 and Page, the big giant building, we would go in there and we would bring a whole tote full of t-shirts and would have an agenda, and we'd have some laptops set up for testing, and we would get help from the marketing folks, and we would just grab people and say, hey, you get a free t-shirt if you will sit down for 15 minutes and go through our designs for the new website and give us your feedback. So we'd go into a room, set them up, and we would just use a prototype, and we would give them some tasks to do. So like, log in, find a video about SD-WAN or something like that. And they would sit down and would record it and ask them questions. And we would just learn hands-on from real users what was working and what wasn't. So testing is vital. If you're not testing your design system or your app or your website at all, you should test it. And there's lots of resources out there for testing. We use one called Validately, which is changing its name to something really dumb, User Zoom Go or something like that. But there's tools out there where you can give them a link and record it and give them tasks and they can click through it if you don't have the option to sit right next to them, which we don't right now. So we have done a lot of testing in the past, and with Al's rapid testing that's coming up, we're doing a lot more in the future, which we're really excited about, because you can design with the best intentions in the world, but until real people get in there and start clicking on it, you don't really know how it works until you get those results. And those results are amazing, because you can have some stakeholders or some, upper management look at one of your designs and be like, I don't like that. I want it to be this instead. And we can say, well, according to all of this data that we have, this is the way that it should be. And then they're like, dang it, I can't really avoid data. So, all right, let's just use it. So testing's huge, and we can't wait to get some more going.
So Chris, the way we're setting up our usability studies is actually having folks complete tasks. So when you ask people directly if they like something or they don't like something, you're introducing bias. So we are putting the components together into the actual page view and asking people to complete tasks and monitoring whether or not they can complete it. And that's how we're setting up our usability studies. Okay, so next question. What is the role of product owners or product managers, if you have them, in your department? Do they provide business requirements or requests to designers? And also, so I'll ask this question after that one. So what is the role of product owners or product managers in the department, and do they provide business requirements and requests?
Yeah, our product owner does everything. She's amazing. She's super busy. But yes, they will hand us business requests and help us too. So like the requirements will come down from somewhere above. Can be lots of different places. It could be VPs, it could be directors, it could be team leads. So we get a lot of requirements from a lot of different places. Those requirements can be like, hey, can you change the events page to be this instead? But all of those are filtered through the product owner, and you will usually have meetings with the product owner on the meeting to help kind of clarify those and prioritize those, and to set up timelines of when these different features are going to roll out, and to organize them, and to help you present your designs to the stakeholder and answer questions, and to kind of be that filter and to advocate for you too. So sometimes you will talk to the product owner about the design. Actually, most of the time, ideally, you will talk to the product owner and be like, hey, here's our designs for this particular thing. And you will get feedback from them first before you go to an upper level management meeting. And so that person will act as kind of a filter to help just kind of streamline the whole process of, here's who's asking for it, and here's us, the team that's actually designing it. So hopefully you have a great relationship with your product owner. Ours is awesome. So again, we're very blessed.
How did you get so much collaboration with your developers? Sometimes designers seem to be in a silo.
Yeah, that's, again, I hate to keep saying the same thing over and over again, but the developers on our team they're rock stars. They're awesome. Like, we can hand stuff off and with full confidence that it's going to be built exactly like we designed it. And it happens like seemingly in one day. We just did a design for some admin stuff. So like an admin app that helps build some of the components for the website. We handed it off, the designs that were thoroughly vetted and approved. And the dude had it built in like one day. It was amazing. And then you go back and forth. So they will present it and say like, hey, here's what I built. And several people on the call that are on the design team said, oh, that button shouldn't say that, or that should not be disabled until you click this, and we will kind of walk them through that. This isn't going to work until you do this. So it's a cadence of having meetings on a weekly basis. They're usually set up at the same time, the same day, and you just do demos. You show what you've developed and you get approval, and that approval comes from management and from the design team. Like, we have a big say in like, you have to fix this, that should not be disabled, or that drop down shouldn't have that option, or whatever. So the developers will listen and they're happy to make changes. And if you ever talk to a developer that hasn't been handed a thoroughly thought out design, you're just like, hey, here's the requirements, build it. They are happy to have a designer. They're happy to have a design team to hand them designs, because that just makes their life so much easier. So if you are working with a developer that is grumpy about you handing them designs and they're hard to work with, then you should probably have a chat with somebody about that person, because in my case, they've always been super happy to have a designer on the team, and they're happy to work with you to make it from a design to a real thing.
So do you have a process to be followed for picking components to put into the design system?
Yeah, there's a base list, you know, buttons, toast messages, error states, inputs. There's it kind of depends on what the app is. If you're designing a mobile app that is, you know, to pay your traffic ticket online, you probably don't need like a tenth of the components that we have built for our website. Like our website has pretty much everything. It's got a huge list. So we start off with kind of the base ones, like here's your app header, here's your app footer, here's your buttons, here's your type, all of the H1s and H2s and title 1s and title 2s and body copy, all of those things we spell out first. Basically anything that you could possibly need to put together a good design is a tiny little component living somewhere in the design system. For those of you that follow Brad Frost and his Atom design, we're building those tiny little molecules and then putting them all together on a page, and it turns into a whole design. So anything that is needed for a finished design turns out to be a component somewhere. And a lot of times we didn't realize that we needed a component till we put together a design and they're like, oh, we need a contact us form. What does that look like? And then we will create a component for it and drop it on a page alphabetically, of course. And then we have it for future. So anytime a need arises from somebody, like, okay, fair enough, that should be a component, we'll add it to the system.
So what aspects surprised you the most during the design system process, and how did it change your handoffs to development?
What surprised me the most? How long it takes to make one. Like I said, a year plus, which is crazy. I mean, if you think about it, like spending an entire year on something. I was used to working with one team for 2 months, 3 months, and then switching and working with another team and just doing this app, then this one over here, and doing 5, 6, 7 apps in 1 year. And then going to, I'm just working on this one thing for an entire year. It's more than a year now. We're into the end of April and we're still finishing it up. So it's a huge upfront time dedication. I wasn't really expecting that, even though I had read like this can take a year or two. I was like, we'll have ours knocked out in 3 months, watch. And then here we are a year and a half later, we're still working on it. So yeah, the sheer amount of time is probably the biggest surprise.
Did that change your handoff to development?
No, the developers are doing the exact same thing that we're doing. They're just doing it from a code perspective. So instead of coding out all of your individual pieces, they have those same components. Like that button is a component and that accordion is a component. And whenever they're asked to build a page for the website, like, hey, go ahead and build the partners page. We need to show all of our partners. They will go in to the design system, the code part of it, and snag all those components and just place them. So I would like to think that that has made their lives a lot easier too, especially because we have a unified code base. I wouldn't say it's completely unified throughout the whole company. I'm not smart enough to know that, but it is mostly unified through all of IT, that they have the same code base with the same tailwinds, classes, and all the other things that are preset for them. They don't have to think what hex code is that. They just type in primary blue and it's set. So I would like to say that it's made their lives a lot easier too.
So this one's a good one, and it's special to me because I deal with tables a lot. How do you collaborate to decide a final component like tables? which could be tons of variations. Is there room for custom components when needed?
Oh, absolutely. Al and I worked together on that table component a lot.
Mhm.
And then we worked with Michael, who is not on our team. He's not on the corporate website team at all. And he doesn't even work in the ATC like we do. He works over in custom apps. And he has a need for tables that I'm glad that we don't have, because tables are such a pain. But he's like, hey, we need an option for an ellipsis that has this drop down. We need to put profile pictures in there. We need to have buttons and pills and other things. So as those requirements came out, I just went into the main component and just started slapping them in there and setting toggles. So you can drop your cells in there, line them all up using auto layout, and then just choose which version of the table that you want. If you need a drop down here and text here and a person's name here, you can do that. And we usually put on these files, like, if there's something here that you see that you need and it's not here, just email me directly, and I will make it happen. And we've done that with the icons. There's always a need for a new icon. Like, I made an icon for a printer just last week. Like, I need a printer icon. I was like, okay, go into Illustrator, make a printer icon, export the SVG, boom, you have a printer icon. So we're always receptive and quickly receptive to anybody that has a need for a component, as long as it's not silly, which has never happened. So all of the needs have been real, and as soon as it's a real ask, we will just add it to the system.
And I will say Jeremy has made our table life a lot easier because he has auto laid out all of our tables. So we don't have to go through and do as much custom work because he's done the front end work already for us.
Yeah, we didn't get into a whole lot of how Figma does auto layout, but if you have Figma and you use auto layout, you know how amazing it is. It's such a time saver. It allows you to type things and the field will grow to match it or not. It depends on how you build the component, but a lot of the manual stuff that made design not super fun has been fixed. So that's how I felt about Sketch when I jumped into Sketch. I was like, this is more of a chore than it is fun. And I feel like Figma is more fun than it is anything else at this point. It's just, it's a joy to get in there. And even though it's not as creative as it used to be because you have these preset components, we still have a ton of creativity of placing those and making really neat designs that we're proud of, that we're excited to see built and to see used. So it's still fun. Figma makes it fun.
Okay, so we have time for one more question and then I'm going to shut it down. So how did you handle Governorates with the design system?
That's a great question. Anything that was like a request or a problem, we decided as a team, like, hey, time to fix this. It was probably me getting in there and fixing it just because I had the most hands-on with all of the different pieces, but I do recommend having someone in charge. And that would probably be Teresa, our team lead. If there's something that's important, yeah, she would say, go ahead and fix this or not. So it's good to have some governance to be like, yes, this is the person who makes the decisions. That way, not everybody's going in here and changing things kind of how we think that they should be. We're asking for permission and giving our ideas. And again, we collaborate well. So we're happy to talk about it and decide as a team what should happen with the system.
Great. Thanks, Jeremy, for coming out and speaking to us today. Thank you, everyone, for coming forth and hearing Jeremy speak. If you are looking to find us, myself or Holly, who was here at the beginning of the chat, here's where you can find us. Again, STLX is us, St. Louis User Experience Group. You can email us. You can find us on Facebook, STLX on Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, STLX Group, all these other things. Or you could find me or Holly on Twitter or email and LinkedIn as well. Thank you guys so much for coming out. We will be posting this to our YouTube. So if you want to go back and look at some things later, you definitely can do that. Super great questions today, guys. You can tell that everyone really loved the design systems because we have more questions than normal, but that's great. I'm so glad to have you guys out, and hopefully I will see you at the next one. Goodbye, everyone.
Thank you.